Robert.
Robert.
I was reading the conflict between the gods, and on page 11 it states that the Aborigines, they still have their barotheric gland,
Right.
but they're not linked to the same deities that we're linked to. So who are they linked to, or if they, who are they linked to if they have their barotheric gland but not linked to the Elohim that we have our link with?
When you're referring to the Aborigines that are mainly in Australia,
Yeah, tour.
all right, which have white, straight hair, but black skin. There's a link in with the Aborigines with Hindu deities or Hindu descendants. When you go back and you realize when they refer to the original man goes back to that sixth ether or the Asiatic black man that's actually the Hindu from the star constellation Nirvana. All right? So now as that is the original man, as having a defect from that is what would bring about an aboriginal man, right? Or a variation from that. There are many of us who will have episodes of psychic abilities or different episodes of our four higher senses because the nerve endings that barotheric gland had set in at one time is still there. So we will have episodes of these four senses. But once you get back to these Hindu deities and their descendants, that was an anomaly that occurred that allowed them to still maintain that because of the fact also that they were isolated to an island. And when you look at Australia, it's essentially an island. You understand? So as them not mixing in with those who did not, because they kept it amongst their particular tribes, they were able to preserve that. So thus that barotheric gland, they still have it. And as well as there are other beings that have those higher senses. Even our brother Mentu Hotep was explaining the Draconians had those higher senses as well. So those are the links in that what you know as the Aborigines are tied back into as far as in their lineage or their descendancy. Anything else?
In the Black Book, it says...
Where?
In the introduction.
Since the introduction doesn't have pages, which you just count them out, which one, so we could get everybody on the same page.
The 10th one.
10th?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It says, for you were gifted with will, for you could be held accountable for not obeying the commands and laws of the one Heavenly Father that was appointed over you all. And my question is that person that was mentioned, the Heavenly Father mentioned, is it Enki or Anu, or who was it?
All right, start reading, but start back at the top of the paragraph.
Okay. It says, with this accomplished, we, Niterat, could continue our mission. The doctrine that would enslave the minds of this breed would be faith, belief, and trust. They must establish themselves a God force, Elohim, Allahumma, Niterat, and then one Yahweh, Allah, Nitir, who could become whatever your hearts desired. And then it says, for you were gifted with will, for you could be held accountable for not obeying the commands and laws of the one Heavenly Father that was appointed over you all.
Okay. Now, keeping on with that, with the next paragraph, it says, in time and with your own minds and imaginations, the true stories changed into myth, folklore, and tales. All gave birth to religion, for it provided false hopes, alternatives, and your inner longing for spiritual freedom at death. You believed that you would return to your heavenly Father, who allowed you re-entrance into Sahu, the Orion star constellation, and then into 9 degrees and all, to be raised to re-enter Ilion. All right? Now, this is referring to Anu. When you get down to who is sending down the laws, when you get to the Elohim or the Anunnaki were the ones that were following the laws that were prescribed by Anu, to the point where they eventually became, as the Anutu came down and was sent and directed to come to Ki or Gi in sets of 50. Thus they became Anunnaki, of which we are a part of. So the laws that we were following were the laws that were being prescribed by our Heavenly Father as Anu. And as it speaks about allowing re-entrance into Ilion and the other portions, or Sahu and Orion, and those 9 degrees, this is speaking about Anu, that's head of what's taking place here as our Heavenly Father. So just read a little further and it'll start explaining it, but you have to be careful, because when you get to Allah and God and Jehovah and Yahweh, those are getting attributed back to Enki. So you have to get clear understanding of what the individual or what the deity is that was doing, to know which one is being involved with. Once you start getting basically into the biblical aspects of information, or the Atum Project down, then you start dealing with Enki and the battle between him and his brother Enki and Enlil. But when we get back to those laws, and this is actually linking us into before the whole Atum Project took place, in order to get us back reunified back in Ilion, that's Anu is over that. Mm-hmm. All right?
Okay.
Is that clear?
That's clear.
Okay. And with that answer, I'd like to humbly pass the class on to my brother, I Am Hotep.
Rahubat. All right, any other questions? We keep it moving right along.
Rahubat.
Rahubat.
I wanted to ask about, well, it starts on page 1, the introduction of the Black Book.
Okay.
Right at the bottom, that last sentence where it says, when this planet was visited by disagreeable, and it says, beings from a dying star, they were welcomed into this great empire. Those that welcomed them were called Netirat.
Okay.
The Sumerians called them Anutu. I don't understand that.
All right. Go ahead and read that for us. Make sure I'm in the right part with you.
At the bottom?
Yeah, go ahead and read the paragraph. We read the whole paragraph.
Okay. Oftentimes, the survival of one being meant the extinction of another. One of these such star systems housed Risk, a planet in the 19th galaxy, the 8th planet of a 3-sun system, which was inhabited by the Riskians, also called Netirat. The 3 sons of this planet Risk were known in time by 3 different names, the most common being Atum, Atun, and Amun, referred to as the Re, or Rays. The Sumerians called them Utu, Afsu, and Shemesh. When this planet was visited by disagreeable, beings from a dying star, they were welcomed into this great empire. Those that welcomed them, I got it.
You got it? Okay. Does everybody else understand what was just read? Okay.
Okay, but I do have a question about the Council of the Nine Enneads
Yes.
of the pre-dynastic periods
Okay.
before man was called man.
Yes.
Okay, are they the same nine Enneads that we are taught about when we dealt with the Tamarayan cultures, dealing with Amun Re and Geb and let me see, I have
Shu and Tefnut.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. What you have to first understand, though, when you talk about the Enneads, the 9 Enneads, in different nomes or different provinces, different sections of ancient Tamaray, they would select or they would give praise to their choice of the 9 Enneads. So in different parts of ancient Tamaray, the Enneads would be different, okay? Oh. And in their stories, depending on who was speaking or who was writing that story and what time period the ancient Egyptian, what they were in, they would give praise to them and they would call them the creator gods. They would give them the title of the highest deities. That's why in ancient Tamarian culture it can be very confusing sometimes because you have different groups or different nomes or different basically little countries within Egypt who were giving praise to their favorite deities at the time. All right. The 9 Enneads, which we recognize, were the highest of the 9 Enneads, okay, who were beings who incarnated here on the planet. Mm-hmm. Most people will teach you about the Enneads or the Natiru, as like we were speaking about earlier, is that they were moral concepts or ideas. They weren't actual physical beings. But we're taught how these beings were actual incarnated deities from the Risk star system who migrated to Orion, they came down to the planet Earth. All right. So prior to them reigning here on Earth in Egypt, and at the time Egypt was just not secluded to that one little area. It contained all of Africa and sometimes other parts of the planet. Okay. All right. These beings pictured in holy tablets. These were the wisest of scientists from throughout the galaxy who came to rest. Okay. Under them, there were different leaders throughout the galaxy. All right. You had 72 in the 18th, 72 in the 19th, which made up the 144. Okay. These were just rulers who reported to the 24 ruling class or the head council, the council of 24 elders. Okay. All right. We haven't been given the names of who all they were and things like that.
Well, what I'd like to know is, are they relative to the ones that they speak of on the next page at the bottom?
Okay, let's go there.
144 Tiat.
Yes.
Pharaohs.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't look at pharaohs. Pharaohs is the term which they grafted, over here in Egypt, or what we say Afirti. It doesn't really mean pharaoh in the sense that we recognize it. Okay. That's a word that's been grafted like many other words. You follow? Like Natiru, it means more than just guardian, but that's the closest to what we can recognize it as. All right, these are English words to try to explain words that come from another culture and another actually system. You follow? All right, and these 144 Afirti that they gave the word to, they also created, or we many times think of only one Nibiru that went out to scout different planets. It was actually 9 different planet ships, which they created to get certain Riskians, ones who wanted to leave off the planet, and others went to scout different solar systems for this precious metal and stuff they were looking for. Excuse me. Okay, so it was a very complicated situation that's summed up basically in a few paragraphs right there about the incoming or welcoming of a foreign being who Zuin was a part of, who later wanted to rule Risk and all the star systems. And, from there we know the war on Risk and the fall of Zuin and things like that, so forth and so forth.
Okay, can you break down, it's one more thing I need you to break down for me. The page right before the last page of the introduction.
Okay, which part?
Right at the top, where it talk about, he says, where he talk about removing you from behind the 9 ball.
Okay.
With the science of Nuwapu, you're forgotten. I never did understand what that meant about being removed from behind the 9 ball. What exactly does that represent, being behind the 9 ball?
Okay, it has many different connotations. All right, one of the meanings of behind the 9 ball is we're governed throughout mentally by hair. The first thing when the master teacher, Reverend Dr. Marcus York, mentioned 9 ether, many of us thought we were better than our older brothers and sisters because we had 9 ether hair. And that was the indication of how we're so engrossed in our hair texture, and we were made to feel like having kinky hair was ugly. So we as Nubians set out to begin to destroy ourselves by destroying our hair. Follow? And many of us don't realize that we're still under that spell of hair, which is 9 ether. All right? When he says get from behind the 9 ball, it's to get from behind that spell of hair. That's one thing. Get from behind that spell that the hair follicles really mean something. Now we think that 9 ether really is that important, but it's only important to a person who is under that negative feeling that because they have kinky hair that they're lesser worth or less value. So that's one spell that has to be broken, the spell of hair. All right. Another spell, when you look at the number 9, you talk about the 9 planets, which in our solar system, originally more than that, but now 9. Getting behind that spell, we're locked in to the information which is contained in this little galaxy we live in, further confined to this planet we live in. In breaking that spell, we start to accept now information instead of information which has been contained right here. You follow? Yeah. Which is one thing our master teacher, Reverend Dr. Marcus York, came to give us, information which is being channeled from beyond this realm into this realm, so we can break from this spell of Leviathan or spell of sleep which we are placed upon. You follow? So being 9 is the highest. If we break beyond that spell, we start to elevate our mind and start seeing past these person, places, and things we've been trapped in. You follow? And 9 also breaks down into 3 times 3. Everything we've been taught breaks down into that person, places, and thing. 3 times 3, which equals 9. We break past that spell of 9. All right? And we start to reawaken our minds, or reawaken.
Well, that's the thing. How do you get past those 3 person, places? Because everything you think about comes in 3s.
One of the keys, and I tap into one thing both my good brothers were speaking about earlier, and one thing we seem to have a hard time grasping or getting past. When we speak of taking black magic, our spiritual powers, all right, and grabbing that, taking a hold of that by worshiping or respecting our ancestors. You follow? We were never taught that within our culture here in America, that we should reach into our own bloodline, our own lineage, and worship and respect and adore that which birthed us. You follow? That's something that is not encompassed in what they teach us. Persons, places, and things. That is beyond that. That is a concept that they didn't teach us. They frowned upon. They said it's wrong. They said it doesn't really work. That's a concept that we have a hard time getting beyond. To actually have a problem and sitting there and meditating on our grandmother to help us in our situations, or meditate on our grandfather or our mother. You follow? Or our father, meditating on them to help us. Because when you start tapping into that information or that spiritual power, which is running within our bloodline, within our body, many times we think of calling upon our ancestors as something we do outwardly, not realizing that within our body, within our DNA structure, we are composed of 14 different individuals, us being the 15th or the 4th generation. So we have living within us, or composed within us, 14 other beings who are connected to us by blood. If you realize and you learn, the blood is a connection to the spirit forces. That's why we always talk about don't eat blood meat, because when you eat a cow, you're taking in the spirit of that cow. You follow? Now, that blood that's in our bodies, in our DNA, moving through us, has the spirit connection to our ancestors. So if we meditate on inside, not outwardly, inside, on our ancestors which are within us, and contact them inwardly, they will be able to help us from beyond this physical realm. You follow? By calling upon that energy and that connection to the blood, to that realm, that spirit realm in which they exist, they will be able to help us in our endeavors. That right there is breaking beyond the barrier of persons, places, and things, because it is contacting a force which is really beyond our normal human comprehension. Yeah. You follow? Mm-hmm. That's one aspect right there. To start enacting or calling upon or accessing those forces which are beyond the hydrogen atom, going on to the etheric realm, and taking that power and channeling it down to this physical realm. You follow? Those are different steps. If you look at our way of life, Nuwapu, which is something in ancient Tamaray, they didn't have a name for it. It was so widely accepted that it's referred to it as Nuwapu. And it implied sound right reasoning. If you take the information, or we take the information which is in these scrolls, which is what goes from the beginning path to the middle path to the final path, you see in our books now, it's a learning process to begin for us to see things for what they really are. You follow? Get rid of all the things which we've been inbred in us, all the filth, all the lies, all the Batmans and Robins and the Commandos and all that stuff we see, which has us blinded to the actual power of our ancestors. You follow? When we were on the land, when we first built in Tamaray, and the master teacher, Dr. Marcus York, first started speaking about contact your ancestors, they'll help you. But you have to be in the right frame of mind doing the good things. Right. Because, we all realized that we had the bad seeds in our family too. We had the alcoholics, we had the murderers, we had the bootleggers and the hustlers and all that in our family too. And if we contact while we're doing negative things, they will come through and they get their joy by seeing us fall, by seeing us getting car crashes. When we were on the land, at one point the master told us to stop because we had brothers falling off the power line. We had brothers falling in the mirror. This is true. You follow? Because of the power of that force and how great it is. And we simply begin to start channeling that. Then that link from our grandmother, our mother, grandmother, and so on, that link will lead us back to the Anunnaki Natiru. And they will begin to help us as well. Once we break the binds of spookism. You follow? Which ties in also to a question which was answered by our brother Constantine about the laws that were put on us. Because we gotten so wayward, so the beings came down and gave us an original Torah. Tammuz and his council of 46 Anunnaki wrote the original books of the Bible to keep us straight, because we have become so wayward, listening to any and everything. And later, disagreeable stepped in and infiltrated and gave the Bible a spookism overtone, which we are now trying to break out of that spell. Okay? So that's just one link in how we can get out of person, places, and things. All right?